Captain Marlowe Vex leaned against the console of the Elysian Ghost, aiming for nonchalance but mostly achieving exhaustion. Her ship was a patchwork monstrosity, only slightly more put together than her crew. "So this ancient space cathedral," she began, her voice dripping with the kind of sarcasm only achieved through years of space piracy and dashed hopes, "is it as holy as it sounds, or is it just another galactic tourist trap with overpriced memorabilia?" Reef, her first mate and professional pessimist, snorted. "If it ain't nailed down, we'll find a way to collect some of that holiness. Besides, what's the worst that could happen? Divine smiting," the crew chuckled, a sound like broken glass tumbling down steel stairs. On a ship like the Ghost, humor was as vital as oxygen and almost as scarce. "Divine smiting might be a step up," Marlowe mused, running a hand through her hair, greasy from too many hours in hyperspace with not enough soap. "We're low on fuel rations, and I'm pretty sure the starboard thruster's about to join the choir invisible." "Ah, the choir invisible," Reef said, his grin all crooked teeth and bad intentions. "Hell of a recruitment policy they have." Marlowe ignored him and turned to the ship's interface, a relic of technology that seemed to be held together by sheer stubbornness and duct tape. "Elysian Ghost to Cathedral Control requesting docking clearance. We come in, peace." There was a pause, the kind that usually precedes bad news or surprise attacks. Finally, a voice crackled through the static. "Elysian Ghost, you're cleared for docking. Please refrain from any, unholy activities while aboard." "No promises," Marlowe muttered, cutting the transmission. The crew began their docking procedures with all the enthusiasm of prisoners cleaning their own cells. As they approached the ancient structure, its massive spires and Gothic arches loomed like a nightmare from a forgotten age. "Well, ain't this welcoming," said Jax, the ship's engineer, tapping the console with a wrench like it owed him money. "Place looks like it's been through a few apocalypses." "Probably has," Marlowe replied. "Most things have these days." As the Ghost latched onto the docking port with a shudder that suggested its parts were having second thoughts, Marlowe turned to her crew. "All right, team, quick resupply, minimal theft. And remember, we don't need another interstellar incident like the one on Doldrum 5. "To be fair," Jax said, "that one was more of a festive misunderstanding." "Turns out fireworks and funerals don't mix," Reef added, his grin widening. Marlowe rolled her eyes. "Just behave. Or at least pretend well enough to get by." The airlock opened, releasing the stale, metallic tang of the Ghost's recycled air into the cathedral's slightly fresher atmosphere. The crew filed out, their boots echoing on the cold, stone-like surface. As they stepped inside, the vastness of the space struck them. The cathedral was a monument to forgotten gods, or perhaps just a reminder of humanity's penchant for building grand things and subsequently screwing them up. "Well, at least the acoustics are nice," Marlowe said, her voice bouncing back from ancient walls. They spread out, searching for supplies, sustenance, and anything else that might keep them alive a little longer. The cathedral seemed deserted, save for a few flickering holograms reciting prayers in a language no one remembered. Reef nudged Marlowe, his voice low. "This place gives me the creeps, too. Empty, like someone's about to jump out and yell boo." "If they're handing out heart attacks, I'll pass," Jax muttered, checking his handheld scanner. "But I'm picking up some energy readings down that way. Could be useful." As they moved deeper into the cathedral, the oppressive quiet was broken by the hum of distant machinery. The air was thick with the smell of ozone and old incense, like a mechanic's workshop on a Sunday morning. "You ever wonder who built these places?" Reef asked, his fingers tracing the intricate carvings on the walls. "And what the hell happened to them?" "My guess," Marlowe replied. "They found something bigger and badder to worship. Or maybe they just realized their gods had better things to do." Their footsteps echoed through the vast halls, leaving them alone with their thoughts and a pervasive sense of unease. Marlowe couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched, and not just by the disapproving gaze of forgotten stone deities. As they reached the source of the energy reading, they found a room filled with old tech, blinking lights casting eerie shadows. At its center stood a console, humming with a power that seemed at odds with the ancient stone surrounding it. "Jackpot," Jack said, his expression somewhere between awe and greed. "This stuff might be worth a fortune. Or it could blow us all to kingdom come," Marlowe said. "But that's a risk we're used to, right?" Reef stepped forward, but before he could say anything more, an unexpected voice echoed through the chamber. "You humans and your penchant for trouble." They spun around, hands reaching for weapons out of habit, but what met them was a solitary figure, draped in shadow. "Who the hell are you?" Marlowe demanded, her blaster aimed squarely at the stranger. The figure stepped forward, revealing an alien face marked by age and something else, amusement. "Oh, just a caretaker of sorts. You're not the first to come seeking sanctuary here, or the first to leave disappointed." Marlowe didn't lower her weapon. "And you're not dead yet. How'd you manage that?" With a shrug that seemed all too human, the alien chuckled. "By avoiding the mistakes you lot seem hell-bent on repeating." Reef glanced at Marlowe. "I like him. He's got that seen-it-all vibe." "Yeah, well, seen it all or not, I don't trust him," Jack said, eyeing the alien warily. "Could be a trick." The alien sighed, a sound that resonated like a long-suffering teacher dealing with particularly slow students. "Relax," he said. "If I wanted you dead, I'd have let the cathedral's defenses take care of that." Marlowe finally lowered her weapon, though her posture remained tense. "We're just here for supplies, then we'll be on our way." "Supplies," the alien mused, moving closer to the console. "I suppose that's one thing this place still has in abundance, but you might find more than you bargained for." "Story of my life," Marlowe said dryly. "What's the catch?" The alien grinned, a surprisingly unsettling expression. "The catch is, dear humans, that this place has a way of revealing truths you might not be ready for." "Truths, huh?" Reef said. "Let's hope it's not the kind that end with us floating in space without a suit." The alien turned back to the console, pressing something that made the lights flicker. "You have a choice. Take what you need and leave. Or stay and uncover secrets long buried." Marlowe considered the offer, her instincts screaming caution even as curiosity pulled at her. "And if we choose to stay, then you might find answers to questions you didn't even know you had," the alien replied, cryptically unhelpful as ever. Jax muttered under his breath. "I swear, if this turns into some kind of cosmic therapy session, I'm out." Marlowe sighed. "Well, we've come this far. Might as well see what this place has to offer. Besides," she added with a wry grin, "what's life without a little existential dread?" Reef chuckled. "Just another day in paradise." As they prepared to dig deeper into the secrets of the ancient space cathedral, a foreboding sense of unease hung over them. Marlowe couldn't shake the feeling that whatever answers lay ahead, they wouldn't come without a price. "Onward then," she said, her voice barely above a whisper as they moved deeper into the cathedral's shadowy depths. "Let's see what nightmares await." Behind them, the alien watched with a knowing smile, as if aware that the real adventure was just beginning. Marlowe squinted at the alien standing in the dim glow of the cathedral's old tech. "So you're telling me this place is more than just a moldy old temple with a flair for dramatics?" The alien, who had introduced himself as Scholar Vorth with all the flair of someone who'd once had a job at the Galactic Library and remembered it fondly, nodded. "Indeed. The cathedral is a sanctuary for species like yours. A museum, if you will." "A museum?" Reef snorted, hands on hips. "Great, maybe they'll put us in display cases. Here we have the common human, prone to bouts of stupidity and sarcasm. How'd we get so lucky?" Vorth gave a chuckle that sounded like a dozen small bells being dropped down a well. "Your sarcasm is noted, but truly you are rare. Humans are a species teetering on the edge of oblivion." Marlowe raised an eyebrow. "Edge of oblivion, huh? Sounds like my last holiday, but I prefer a bit more sun and a lot less cryptic prophecy." Jax leaned over, peering at the console. "So, what exactly does this mean for us? You gonna keep us here like some kind of interstellar zoo exhibit?" "Preserve, not capture," Vorth corrected. "Think of it as an opportunity to be remembered." immortalized in the annals of galactic history. You say preserve, I hear taxidermy, Reef muttered. Not my idea of a retirement plan. Vorth gestured to the array of blinking lights and humming consoles. This technology is designed to sustain life indefinitely. Here, you would be safe, removed from the chaos and danger of the outside universe. Marlowe crossed her arms, unimpressed. Sounds more like a bore than a blessing. We're pirates, not pensioners. We thrive on chaos and danger. Hell, it's the only thing that keeps us from killing each other. Reef raised a hand. Speak for yourself, Captain. I'm all for a quiet life as long as it includes a bar and a good view. Life in a fishbowl, Jax grumbled. No thanks. I like my freedom, even if it's 10 yards of metal in a floating death trap. Vorth tilted his head, curious. You would choose a life of peril over the certainty of survival. Absolutely, Marlowe said, eyes narrowing. Sure, we're likely to get shot, starve, or explode, but at least it's on our terms, and it beats being a cosmic curiosity. Besides, she added with a smirk, who'd want to live forever with a bunch of uptight aliens watching you scratch your ass? Reef chuckled. I dunno, might be some folks' idea of kink. Vorth seemed genuinely perplexed, one of his many eyes blinking in bewilderment. Humans are truly an enigma. Part of our charm, Marlowe replied, her tone making it clear she didn't give a damn about being charming. Now, how do we get out of here without becoming a part of your permanent collection? You are free to leave, Vorth said, though his voice carried an undercurrent of disappointment. But be aware that your journey may not end as you wish. Jack snorted, twirling a spanner between his fingers. Pretty sure none of our journeys end how we wish, buddy. It's all part of the fun. The alien seemed to consider this, a flicker of something akin to respect crossing his features. Very well, you are free to go, but should you decide otherwise, you know where to find me. Great, Marlowe said, already turning on her heel. You can keep your preservation plans. We'll take our chances with the universe. As they began to backtrack through the darkened corridors, the sense of urgency grew. The cathedral, for all its supposed sanctuary, felt more like a tomb, and Marlowe had no intention of becoming its newest relic. Reef leaned close as they walked, his voice low. You think he was serious about all that preservation stuff? Sounds more like he's pitching a timeshare. Serious enough, Marlowe replied, scanning the shadows. But I don't plan on sticking around to find out if he's got a brochure. We've got a ship to patch and a galaxy to pillage. No time for existential crises. Existential crises are what we do best, Jax added, tapping his scanner to ensure they weren't being followed. Between near-death experiences and crippling debt, we've got the market cornered. As they reached the docking bay, the oppressive weight of the cathedral lifted slightly, the familiar sight of the Elysian ghost a comforting reminder of their usual brand of chaos. True, the ship was a mess, held together by hope and desperation, but it was their mess. Marlowe paused at the airlock, glancing back at the ancient structure with a mix of relief and disdain. Well, team, time to skedaddle before Vorth decides to change his mind and invites us for tea. Reef clapped her on the shoulder. And if we're lucky, we'll make it out with all our limbs attached. Jax gave a mock salute. Ladies and gentlemen, our fearless leader. The airlock closed behind them with a satisfying hiss, and Marlowe let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. The familiar, comforting whir of the ghost enveloped them, and the crew settled back into their roles with an ease that only came from living on the brink. Reef flopped into his seat, kicking his feet up on the console. You know, if we ever get bored of pirating, we could always open a travel agency. Visit the most dangerous sites in the galaxy and live to tell the tale. Marlowe chuckled, grabbing the controls. We'd make a killing, but probably not the kind that pays well. Hey, money's overrated anyway, Jax said, flicking switches and doing his best to ignore the groans of protest from the ship's engines. Adventure's where it's at. As they powered up and disengaged from the docking port, the cathedral loomed behind them, a dark silhouette against the stars. We're clear, Jax reported, a hint of relief in his voice. Engines are holding for now. Good, Marlowe said, eyes on the nav chart. Let's make tracks before Vorth reconsiders our value as cosmic zoo exhibits. Reef sighed contentedly. I love the smell of freedom in the morning. Smells like burnt circuits and bad decisions, Jax muttered, fiddling with a loose panel. Marlowe grinned, the familiar thrill of the unknown tugging at her. Sure, they dodged one weird bullet today, but in a universe determined to screw you over, you took the victories where you could get them. "All right, team," she said, settling into the captain's chair with the air of someone who had no idea what the hell they were doing but wasn't about to let that stop them. "Let's find ourselves a new adventure, preferably one that doesn't involve being locked in stasis for eternity." "You're the boss," Reef said, with a mock salute that was more smirk than sincerity. "Lead on, O fearless leader." "Fearless, my ass," Marlowe replied, shaking her head. "I'm just too stubborn to quit." With that, the Elysian ghost slipped back into the void, engines rumbling like a disgruntled beast, and the stars stretched out before them, a glittering array of promise and peril. Whatever lay ahead, it was guaranteed to be interesting, if nothing else. And for a crew like theirs, interesting was just another word for home. As the Elysian ghost sailed through the void, promising stars in every direction, Captain Marlowe Vex contemplated their next move. The last thing she wanted was to become space museum artifacts, admired for their rarity and stupidity. That wasn't in the cards, not while she had a ship and a stubborn will. But as their engines coughed with the enthusiasm of a geriatric with emphysema, it seemed fate had other ideas. The Elysian ghost, with all its charm and duct tape, sputtered to a halt, floating like a lost bottle cap in a cosmic sea. "Great," Marlowe muttered, slumping back in her seat. Stranded in the middle of nowhere with a ship full of attitude and a hold empty of fuel, Reef gave a tired laugh from the console, glancing at the dwindling fuel gauge. "Guess we're not going anywhere fast. We could start a drifting contest, see who gets bored first." Jax tightened a few bolts that didn't seem to do anything useful. "Or we could establish a new colony. Call it misery and charge tourists for the privilege of seeing how much life can suck." Marlowe rubbed her temples, feeling a headache approaching like an old nemesis. All right. Looks like we're stuck for now, but no panicking yet. We've still got options." "Name one," Reef said, eyebrows raised skeptically. "Well," Marlowe said, tapping the nav screen, "we could try praying to whatever god watches over misfits and see if they can be bribed with sarcasm." Jax raised a wrench in mock salute. "I'll start the collection. Might be the only thing this ship doesn't leak." Reef chuckled and leaned back in his chair. "Captain, I've got some good news and some bad news." "Hit me with both," Marlowe said, adjusting her seat as if it might help the engines rethink their life choices. "Well," Reef started, "the good news is we're not dead. Yet, always a plus," Marlowe cut in. "And the bad news," Reef nodded towards the console. "We're dead in the water, no fuel, and our rations are just as empty as our escape plan." "Wonderful," Marlowe sighed. "It's like a vacation from hell, except the drinks are free, because there aren't any." "Maybe we should have listened to Vorth and signed up for his eternal life plan," Jax suggested, half joking. "At least their food wasn't a myth," Marlowe snorted. "Yeah, and all we'd have to give up is our freedom and dignity." "No thanks, I left my dignity back on Earth, and I'm not about to trade what's left of my freedom for a ticket to nowhere." "All right, enough whining," Marlowe declared, standing up. "Let's see what's salvageable on this rust bucket and figure out how we're going to survive." They spent the next few hours rummaging through the ship, which was a lot like searching for gold in a landfill. What they found was less than promising. Some canned food that expired in the last century, a few tools that looked more like museum pieces themselves, and just enough duct tape to hold their sanity together. "Not exactly a feast," Reef commented, holding up a can with a label so faded it could have been anything from soup to explosive chemicals. "Look on the bright side," Jax said, giving a pipe a hopeful whack. "We've got enough to keep us arguing for a few more days." "Yeah," Marlowe agreed, opening the can with a grimace. "And if we're lucky, whatever's inside this can won't kill us immediately." Reef leaned back, arms crossed. So, what's the plan, Captain? Sit here and wait for a miracle or rig something from this heap of junk? Neither, if I can help it, Marlowe said. But first, let's see if we can reroute some power from the life support to the engines. It's not like the cold embrace of space will be any worse than this ship's temperature control. Jax, already armed with a toolbox and a grin that promised trouble, got to work. If we blow up, I just want you to know, I've always hated the color of this ship. Duly noted, Marlowe said dryly. Reef, while Jax is pretending he's a mechanic, see if you can get a signal out. Maybe there's a passing freighter that doesn't hate pirates. With our luck, it'll just be more trouble, Reef said, flipping switches with a practiced hand. But hey, trouble's our middle name. The Iors dragged by with the speed of a funeral march. The Ghost, stubborn as ever, refused to cooperate. The engines wheezed, the lights flickered, and the duct tape stretched to its limit. Jax cursed under his breath as sparks flew from a panel. Think we might need a new plan, boss. This tin can's about ready to join the scrap heap. Marlowe gritted her teeth, refusing to admit defeat. All right. Let's see what else we can come up with. Maybe there's something in the old tech from the Cathedral we can use. Reef raised an eyebrow. You want to go back? Wasn't the whole point to avoid becoming their next exhibit? Yeah, but desperate times call for desperate measures, Marlowe replied. And we're just about as desperate as it gets. Seems risky, Jax added, leaning against a bulkhead. But then again, we've made a career out of risky. The crew geared up, grabbing whatever equipment might be useful, or at least dramatic, in their potential return to the Cathedral. The airlock cycled open with a reluctant groan, and Marlowe led the charge back into the shadowy depths of the ancient structure. Back in the belly of the beast, Reef muttered as they navigated the labyrinthine halls. Let's hope this time we don't choke on it. Just keep an eye out for anything that looks useful, Marlowe instructed, already scanning the walls for hidden panels or forgotten technology. And no touching anything that looks like it might explode. Jax snorted. You say that like it's a given. They moved deeper into the cathedral, the oppressive atmosphere closing in like a bad memory. The grand arches and looming spires seemed to mock their plight, whispering promises of salvation they had no intention of keeping. Reef paused by a flickering console, studying the alien symbols etched into its surface. Think this might be something? Marlowe joined him, squinting at the display. Your guess is as good as mine, but it's worth a shot. Jax fumbled with his tools, jury-rigging a makeshift interface. The console sparked, and for a moment nothing happened. Then, with a soft hum, the screen lit up, displaying a series of diagrams. Looks like some kind of power grid, Marlowe said, tracing the lines with her finger. If we can reroute some of this energy back to the Ghost, we might get the engines running, or blow ourselves to bits, Reef added helpfully. Details, Jax muttered, already connecting wires with a reckless disregard for personal safety. As they worked, the cathedral seemed to come alive around them, lights flickering to life, casting eerie shadows across the walls. It was as if the ancient structure was watching, waiting to see if these interlopers could prove their worth. Just a little more, Marlowe urged, heart pounding. Come on, you stubborn piece of... The system sparked violently and a low rumble echoed through the halls. Every hair stood on end as the cathedral's defenses activated, a shimmering energy field crackling to life. Oh, Reef said, backing away. I think we woke up the neighbors. Great, Jax groaned. As if we didn't have enough problems already, the field pulsed, sending tendrils of energy arcing across the room. Marlowe ducked, narrowly avoiding a bolt that scorched the stone wall behind her. Okay, time to go, she shouted, tugging at the others. Move it, before this place decides we're not welcome. The crew sprinted down the corridors, feet pounding against the ancient floors as the energy field surged after them like a vengeful ghost. Sparks flew, arches crumbled, and the cathedral's once serene visage twisted into a malevolent grin. You sure know how to pick him, Captain, Reef yelled, narrowly avoiding another zap of energy. Shut up and run, Marlowe snapped, adrenaline pushing her faster than she'd thought possible. They barely made it to the docking bay as the field reached a fever pitch, the structure groaning under the strain of its own defenses. The Ghost's airlock hissed open, welcoming them with open arms, or as close as a ship could manage. "Buckle up," Marlowe ordered, throwing herself into the captain's chair. "Jax, hit it." Jax needed no urging, slamming a fist into the controls. The engines roared to life, the ancient power from the cathedral pushing them forward with a surge of energy. "Feels like we've got a rocket up our." "You know," Reef commented, holding onto his seat for dear life. "Just hold it together," Marlowe barked. "If we can clear the field, we might just make it." The Ghost shot forward, the cathedral shrinking into the distance as the energy field crackled behind them, a storm of furious power. It was touch and go, every creak and groan of the ship threatening to unravel them. But then they were free, the stars once more their domain, the cathedral left behind to brood in its own mysteries. The crew let out a collective sigh of relief, the tension dissipating like smoke in the void. "Well, that was fun," Jax said, wiping sweat from his brow. "Let's never do it again." Marlowe chuckled, her heart still racing. "Agreed. But at least we're moving again." Reef leaned back, a satisfied grin on his face. "Guess we're not such a bad crew after all." "Who knew? Turns out, we're pretty resourceful when we're not busy being idiots," Marlowe replied, feeling a rare sense of pride. "Now, let's find a way to refuel and get back to the business of being terrible at piracy." As the Elysian Ghost sailed once more into the depths of the cosmos, the crew knew one thing for sure. No matter what the universe threw at them next, they'd face it together, armed with nothing but duct tape, sarcasm, and an unyielding refusal to give in. The Elysian Ghost shuddered through space, engines coughing like an asthmatic smoker on their last pack. Marlowe Vex, captain of this fine specimen of a spacefaring disaster, surveyed her domain with the kind of disdain usually reserved for used spaceships and dead-end jobs. "Seriously, is there some kind of cosmic joke where we're the punchline?" she muttered, fingers drumming a restless tattoo on the armrest of her command chair. "Could be worse," Reef piped up from his console, where he seemed to be in a constant battle with gravity and control software. "We could be out of duct tape, or optimism," Jax added, emerging from the bowels of the ship like a mechanic's gremlin. "But I think we ran out of that before we even left Earth." "Optimism's overrated," Marlowe replied. "I can't patch a hull breach with a can-do attitude." As if in response, the Ghost lurched violently. The lights flickered, and somewhere deep within the bowels of the ship a panel sparked ominously. "Or without more of whatever the hell just broke," Jax grumbled, kicking a wall panel that had begun to hum with a slightly malevolent tone. "Look, the ship runs on dreams and spite." "Mostly spite," Reef said, trying to stabilize the Ghost's erratic flight path. "But we're back to square one. And I don't know about you, but I'd rather not get reacquainted with the inside of that cathedral." Marlowe snorted. "You mean the ancient space cathedral that tried to fry us?" "Yeah, that's the one. I think it's got a crush on us. Or a vendetta," Marlowe replied. "Let's try and not find out which one." Just as Jax was about to deliver another witty remark about their predicament, the ship's emergency klaxon blared to life, a harbinger of impending doom that no one ever wanted to hear. "Now what?" Marlowe muttered, as an alarmingly large red warning flashed across Reef's console. It blinked the ominous message: "Containment field activated." "Well, crap," Reef said, staring at the controls as if they'd personally betrayed him. "Looks like they've trapped us in some kind of energy field, a containment field." "Wonderful," Marlowe replied, voice dripping with sarcasm. "We're officially the universe's most unwilling houseguests. So, what now?" Jax asked, rubbing at a grease smudge that had somehow found its way onto his forehead. "We can't exactly ask nicely for them to let us go." "Yeah, I'm guessing the please option isn't on the table," Reef agreed. "So what's the plan, Cap?" Marlowe leaned back, her mind working furiously. "We need more information. If we can figure out how this field works, maybe we can find a way to shut it down." "Sure," Jax acknowledged. And are we just going to ask the aliens for a user manual? Maybe there's a helpful YouTube tutorial somewhere. Just then, a soft chime interrupted their banter, echoing oddly through the ship systems. Reef glanced at his console, eyebrows shooting up. Guys, I think someone's trying to talk to us. More aliens," Marlowe asked, her voice edged with disbelief. "Because I'm fresh out of diplomatic skills," Reef shrugged, tapping at the controls. "Not sure, but they're using an ancient comm frequency. It's like they want to talk, but through a time machine." "Great," Marlowe said, crossing her arms. "Patch them through. Let's see what the universe's latest trick has in store for us." The screen flickered, and a face materialized. A decidedly non-human face, with eyes that glowed softly and a mouth that twisted into what might have been a smile or a grimace. It was hard to tell with aliens. "Greetings, Earthlings," the being intoned, voice smooth and artificial, yet carrying a hint of amusement. "I am Unit V-147, call me V. And before you ask, no, I'm not here to kill you." "Well, that's comforting," Jack said, crossing his arms. "So what do you want to help?" Surprisingly enough, V replied, eyes flickering in a manner that suggested they were used to dealing with skepticism. "You see, I'm not particularly fond of my fellow preservationists' methods. I'm more of a, let's say, a rebel." Marlowe raised an eyebrow. "Rebel AI. Sounds like a plot twist waiting to happen." V chuckled, a sound that had no right being so friendly coming from a piece of sentient software. "Indeed. I was part of the Cathedral systems, but their idea of preserving life is, let's just say, restrictive. I'm all for freedom of movement, so you want to help us escape?" Reef asked, leaning forward with interest. "That would be the idea. But it won't be easy," V admitted. "The containment field is designed to keep specimens, pardon me, guests from leaving. But with my knowledge and your unique skills, I believe we can find a way." "Unique's just a polite way of saying desperate and unqualified," Marlowe pointed out. "Whatever works," V said. "I assume you've got a plan, working on it," Marlowe replied. "Why don't you fill us in on what you know about this containment field?" "Gladly. It's powered by a core deep within the cathedral structure. The good news is that it's been neglected for centuries, much like your ship." "Hey now, I'm the only one allowed to insult this bucket of bolts," Jax interjected. "Apologies. But the point is, the system is vulnerable. If you can get to the core, you should be able to disable it, and the bad news," Marlowe prompted. "The bad news is that it's heavily fortified with defenses designed to repel any intruders. You'll have to be clever and quick." "Clever's our middle name," Reef said, almost convincingly. "Let's just hope it's enough," Marlowe concluded. "All right, V, get us what you can on those defenses. We'll get ready for a little field trip." The screen went dark as V's transmission ended, leaving the crew to contemplate their next move. "So we're going back in, are we?" Jax asked, not quite able to suppress a grin. "Kind of missed the place, if I'm honest." "Yeah, it had a real homey feel," Reef added. "Like a haunted mansion in space." "Well, don't get too comfortable," Marlowe said, standing. "This time we're not leaving until we've cracked that damn core and got ourselves a one-way ticket out of here." The crew set about preparing for their mission with an energy born of necessity rather than enthusiasm. What they lacked in proper equipment, they made up for in sheer determination not to end up as interstellar artifacts. "Think V's on the level?" Reef asked, donning his helmet and checking his tools with an air of someone about to reluctantly do something mildly heroic. "Who knows?" Marlowe replied. "It's a risk, but what choice do we have? Besides, I can't see any reason an AI would lie to us, because entities created by other entities never have ulterior motives," Jack said dryly, slinging a bag of dubious supplies over his shoulder. "Let's just hope survival is a mutual interest," Marlowe shot back. "All right, odds are against us and luck's never been our friend. Let's move." The crew left the Ghost behind once more, stepping out into the cold embrace of the Space Cathedral's labyrinthine halls, with only their wits and a rebellious AI promised to guide them. The corridors were unforgiving, silent shadows stretching before them as they delved deeper into the ancient structure. Every step seemed to echo with the weight of history and the threat of annihilation. "Why do these places never come with a map?" Reef complained, keeping close to the others. "Because that would be too easy," Marlowe replied. "And we all know how the universe feels about giving us breaks." They made their way towards the heart of the cathedral, guided by V's whispered directions over their comms. The deeper they traveled, the more intricate the architecture became, each twist and turn a testament to a bygone civilization's architectural bravado. "Feels like this place is playing hard to get," Jack said, glancing at a series of alien murals that seemed to watch them with silent judgment. "Yeah, well, I've had enough of its games," Marlowe replied, eyes scanning the path ahead for traps and pitfalls, both literal and metaphorical. As they approached the core, the air grew thick with energy, the walls humming with latent power. It was a place caught between life and death, knowledge and oblivion. Getting close, V's voice crackled through their earpieces. "But be careful. The defenses will have activated by now. Wouldn't expect anything less," Marlowe said, signaling the crew to halt. "All right, people, this is where it gets tricky." Ahead, the corridor opened into a chamber, its center dominated by a pulsating crystal that flickered with a light both mesmerizing and ominous. Surrounding it were arrays of machines, dormant but deadly, like guardians standing sentinel. "So, what's the plan?" Reef asked, eyes flicking nervously between the crystal and the machines. "We get in, disable the core, and get out before this place decides to fry us," Marlowe replied, steeling herself for what lay ahead. "Easy enough," Jack said, though his voice betrayed the lie. "Let's hope V's got our backs." The crew moved with purpose, slipping between the ancient machines with a mix of caution and the reckless abandon of those with nothing left to lose. The machines stirred as they approached, gears grinding to life with an eerie precision. "Here goes nothing," Marlowe muttered, reaching for the core. The moment her hand made contact, the room erupted in a symphony of alarms and flashing lights. "Not good," Reef said, ducking as one of the machines swung towards him with menacing intent. "Keep it together," Marlowe ordered, focusing on the core, her hands moving with a practiced skill that belied the chaos around them. "We've got this." V's voice buzzed in their ears, offering guidance and encouragement. "Just a few more steps, Captain. You're doing great." "Glad you think so," Marlowe grunted, fingers dancing across the core's surface, searching for a flaw, a weakness. The machines closed in, relentless in their pursuit, but the crew fought back with a tenacity that defied reason. Jax and Reef worked in tandem, tools and wits against technology far beyond their understanding. "Nearly there," V prompted. "Just a little longer." With a final, desperate maneuver, Marlowe found it, the core's vulnerability, a small imperfection that pulsed with potential. She struck, and the effect was instantaneous. The room dimmed as the core's light sputtered and died, the machines grinding to a halt as the containment field collapsed around them. "Good work, Captain," V said, satisfaction woven through the static of the comms. "Let's get out of here before it decides to change its mind," Marlowe replied, breathless but triumphant. The crew sprinted back the way they'd come, the path now clear and the ghost waiting like a loyal hound come to heel. They boarded the ship with renewed vigor, the thrill of their victory propelling them forward. "Punch it, Jax," Marlowe commanded, dropping into her chair as the ship's systems roared to life. "With pleasure," Jax replied, slamming the controls as the ghost surged into the void, free at last. As the stars stretched out before them, the crew shared a moment of weary exhilaration. They'd survived the impossible once more, laughing in the face of fate and defying the odds. "Looks like we're not quite done yet," Marlowe said, a smile tugging at the corners of her mouth. "Nope," Reef agreed, settling into his seat with relief. "But I'd say we're pretty damn close." And with that, the Elysian ghost flew on, its course uncertain but its crew undaunted, united in their quest to find fuel, fortune, and maybe, just maybe, a little peace among the stars. The Elysian ghost was back in her element, or rather out of it. Adrift in space, she was much like her crew, stubborn, a bit unhinged and getting by on good intentions and duct tape. The stars glimmered through the viewport, mocking their predicament with a twinkle that said, "You're screwed, but aren't we pretty?" "Right, so who's hungry?" Jax asked, rifling through the last of their rations like a raccoon with a vendetta against trash cans. Reef leaned back in his chair, the exhaustion evident in the way he slumped as if gravity had suddenly gotten personal. "I could eat the ass end of a space slug right about now." Captain Marlowe Vex snorted, nursing a cup of what could generously be called coffee. "Careful, someone might take you up on that offer," she said, setting her mug down with a clatter loud enough to wake the dead, assuming the dead kept reasonable hours. Marlowe continued, addressing the AI with the tone of a weary parent whose child just drew on the walls again. "You got an update on our power situation?" V's voice crackled over the intercom, still as irritatingly upbeat as ever. "Well, Captain, if you consider living on the edge of oblivion an improvement, then yes, I'd say we're making progress." "Great," Marlowe muttered. "Neutron star, here we come." Jax looked up, his face painted with a mixture of curiosity and impending dread. "What's your plan, Cap? Last time I checked, neutron stars weren't exactly on the tourist map." Marlowe tapped her head, grinning like a cat with a canary. "Oh, but they are when you've got a ship that feeds on despair and cosmic radiation. We're gonna harness that star's energy to jumpstart the ghost." Reef laughed, though it came out more like a cough. "Sounds like a plan for people who hate living." "Exactly," Marlowe said, rolling her eyes. "But consider the alternative. We drift until some interstellar scavengers find us, strip our bones, and sell our story to the nearest space tabloid." Jack sighed, slumping further down into his seat. "Why do your plans always sound like we're the punchline in a cosmic joke?" "Because we probably are," Marlowe replied, the edges of her smile as sharp as broken glass. "But hey, who doesn't love a good laugh?" Vorth, the ship's resident alien scholar and moral compass, albeit one that occasionally needed recalibrating, materialized in the doorway, looking more jittery than usual. "Captain, you do realize that meddling with a neutron star might get us killed," Marlowe finished, arching an eyebrow. "Yeah, but staying here might do the same. Do you have a less suicidal alternative, or are we sticking with Plan A?" Vorth hesitated, his tentacles twitching in what might have been an expression of deep discomfort or a particularly vigorous sneeze. "I suppose not," he admitted, though it was clear he wasn't thrilled about the prospect of stardust in his future. "Then it's settled," Marlowe said, a note of finality in her voice that brooked no argument. "Reef, get us moving. Jax, keep the engines from blowing up. And Vorth, start praying to whatever intergalactic deity you've got." The crew went about their tasks with the grim determination of those who had long since resigned themselves to fate's cruel sense of humor. The ghost lurched forward, a wounded beast ready for one last charge. "Anyone else think this is all a bit poetic?" Reef asked as he tapped at the ship's interface, trying to coax more speed from its reluctant systems. "Depends on your definition of poetry," Jax grunted, his head buried in the guts of the engine. "If you mean a haiku about impending doom, then sure, it's downright lyrical." Marlowe watched her crew with a mixture of affection and exasperation. They were a motley collection of misfits and cynics, each with their own scars and stories, but in moments like this, they were hers, and that made all the difference. As the neutron star loomed closer, its light casting eerie shadows across the ship's interior, Marlowe felt the familiar thrill of danger dance along her spine. It was a sensation she had come to know intimately, like an old lover who only visited when things were about to get interesting. "All right, everyone, strap in," she called out, her voice steady even as her pulse quickened. "We're going in hot and heavy, and I don't want to lose anyone because they forgot to fasten their seatbelt." Reef, ever the pragmatist, muttered a few choice words about the captain's leadership style, but he did as he was told, securing himself and double-checking the calculations that might, or might not, keep them alive. The ghost surged forward, trembling as if in anticipation or fear. The neutron star's gravity tugged at them with an insistent pull, drawing them ever closer to its blazing heart. "Here goes nothing," Marlowe whispered, her fingers dancing across the controls with a precision born of desperation and defiance. The ship shuddered violently, the engines screaming in protest as they entered the star's gravitational field. The hull groaned, metal straining against forces it was never meant to endure. "Hold together, girl," Jax urged, half to the ship and half to himself, his hands a blur as they worked to stabilize the power flow. Marlowe gritted her teeth, her eyes fixed on the viewscreen as the neutron star filled it with a swirling mass of light and energy. They were playing with fire, and it was anyone's guess whether they'd emerge unscathed or be consumed by the blaze. "Brace," she yelled, the word barely out of her mouth before the ship shuddered again, this time with the unmistakable jolt of success, or something resembling it. Energy coursed through the Ghost, electrifying the air and setting the consoles aglow. They'd done it, tapped into the star's power, and for the first time in what felt like an eternity, the ship was alive with potential. "Well, I'll be damned," Reef said, his voice equal parts relief and disbelief. "We actually pulled it off." Marlowe let out a shaky laugh, the sound somehow both triumphant and incredulous. "Of course we did. We're too stupid to know when we're beaten." The crew joined in, their laughter a ragged, joyous chorus that echoed through the ship. They'd faced the abyss and come out on the other side, battered but unbroken. As the Ghost drifted away from the star, its course once more set for the unknown reaches of space, Marlowe allowed herself a moment of quiet reflection. They'd survived, again, and that was no small thing. "Feeling philosophical, Cap?" Jax asked, breaking into her reverie with a grin that was as lopsided as it was genuine. "Just thinking about how much trouble we're going to be in if we keep cheating death like this," she replied, a wry smile playing on her lips. Vorth, normally the first to offer a cautionary tale or moral insight, simply nodded. "Perhaps we're meant for something more than mere survival," he mused. "Or maybe we're just too stubborn to die," Reef countered, leaning back with a satisfied sigh. Whatever the truth, Marlowe knew one thing for certain. As long as they had each other, they'd face whatever the universe threw at them with the same irreverent spirit that had gotten them this far. "All right, crew," she said, her voice carrying the authority of a captain who'd seen too much and still wanted more. "We may not know where we're headed, but we know we're going there together. So buckle up and enjoy the ride." The Elysian Ghost surged forward, a defiant speck against the vastness of space, her crew ready for whatever came next. They were outlaws and adventurers, survivors and dreamers, united by the bonds forged in the fires of adversity. And as the stars wheeled overhead, Marlowe allowed herself a rare moment of peace, content in the knowledge that whatever awaited them, they'd face it with laughter and courage, daring the universe to do its worst. Because in the end, they were more than just a ship and her crew. They were a family, bound by the crazy, chaotic, beautiful journey they shared. And that was worth all the neutron stars in the galaxy. Captain Marlowe Vex surveyed the chaos from her captain's chair, her coffee now as cold and bitter as the void outside. The Elysian Ghost was lurching through space with all the grace of a drunken octopus, and Marlowe had the distinct feeling that the universe was laughing at them, or maybe just at her. "V, give me a damage report," she barked, knowing full well what the answer would be. "Captain, if I were a medical professional, I'd recommend a stiff drink and a vacation," V chirped through the intercom with her usual unwarranted cheer. "But since I'm not, I'll just say we're in a delightful state of disrepair." Jack snorted as he emerged from the bowels of the engine room, streaked with oil and wearing an expression that could curdle milk. "Delightful's one word for it. We're holding together with hope and duct tape, and I'm pretty sure we're fresh out of hope." Reef, seated at the navigation console, looked up with bloodshot eyes and a wry grin. "Well, at least duct tape's still in stock. What's our next miracle, Cap?" Marlowe tapped the viewport, the neutron star now a distant, calming dot, as if they'd somehow tamed a rabid dog and tied it to a tree. We need to disrupt that alien containment field. Best guess says it's powered by the same tech that's running the Cathedral. If we can short it out, we'll have a window. A window to where? Vorth asked, his voice a mix of skepticism and morbid curiosity as he hovered near the door. To getting the hell out of here, Marlowe replied. I'm not keen on becoming part of a galactic museum exhibit. Human last seen desperately fleeing. Sounds like a bestseller, Reef quipped, fingers flying over the controls. How exactly do we plan to short out an ancient alien tech without frying ourselves in the process? Same way we do everything, Marlowe said, leaning back with a smirk that promised mischief. By winging it. Jax rolled his eyes. That's comforting. Vorth, always the voice of interstellar wisdom, ventured cautiously. The tech is likely designed to be foolproof. It might not take kindly to your, shall we say, creative approach. Good thing we're not fools, then, Marlowe countered, her tone dancing on the knife edge between confidence and insanity. Couldn't convince me otherwise, Jax muttered under his breath, but there was no malice in it. Reef studied the console, calculating odds that would make a gambler weep, then sighed. All right, let's get this over with. Maybe the universe will finally be impressed with our stupidity and let us catch a break. Don't count on it, Marlowe said, cracking her knuckles. We've got to coax a reaction from the neutron star, realign the engines and pray we don't turn into space dust. Jax grinned, a glint of mania in his eyes. Just another Tuesday, then. They set to work, the ghost buzzing with an energy that was half nervous anticipation, half fear of imminent death. Each crew member moved with a practiced precision, like cogs in a very dysfunctional machine that somehow still worked because no one had told it otherwise. Prepare to engage the containment field disruption, Marlowe ordered, her voice steady despite the chaos. And if you could sound a little less chipper about our impending doom, that'd be great, noted, V replied, somehow managing to sound both insulted and amused. Reef took the helm, his hands a blur as he adjusted their trajectory. Engines are set to overclock. If this doesn't work, I'm blaming you, Cap. Get in line, Marlowe said, strapping herself in. Everyone else does. The ghost shuddered as they approached the neutron star's orbit, the hull protesting like an old man with arthritis. The engines roared, a cacophony that echoed through the ship like a death knell. Here goes nothing, Marlowe whispered, her gaze fixed on the neutron star, a cosmic roulette wheel they hoped would land on red instead of dead. Reef initiated the sequence, a complex dance of numbers and equations that would either save them or end them. Activating the containment field disruptor. Now, the ghost lurched, a violent jolt that made Marlowe's coffee leap from the cup and stain the floor. She held her breath, waiting for the inevitable backlash from the ancient tech. Any second now, Jax said, tension coiled in his voice. Then a flicker, a ripple through the fabric of space as if the universe had hiccuped. The containment field shimmered, distorted, then fractured with a sound like a cosmic sigh. We did it, Reef breathed, disbelief etched in every line of his face. Don't sound so surprised, Marlowe said, though relief sang in her words. We've been lucky this long, figures it would hold out a bit more. Vorth nodded, though he looked like a man contemplating his own eulogy. Luck or not, we must capitalize on this chance. He's right, Jax said, already at work stabilizing their systems. We got a window, but it's closing fast. Then let's not waste time, Marlowe said, her captain's instincts firing on all cylinders. Reef, plot us a course out of here. V, keep monitoring for any nasty surprises. Jax, keep those engines from exploding. Roger that, Cap, Jax replied, his hands already deep in the guts of the machinery, coaxing them to dance a little longer. Reef's fingers flew over the console, searching for a path that wouldn't instantly annihilate them. Course set. It ain't pretty, but it'll do. The ghost surged forward, a wounded beast clawing its way to freedom. The neutron star's pull faded, replaced by the icy embrace of the void. Is it over? Reef asked, his voice no more than a whisper, as if afraid speaking too loudly would tempt fate. For now, Marlowe replied, though she knew better than to let her guard down. Let's just hope the universe's sense of humor's starting to run out. They drifted in silence for a moment, the only sound the hum of the ship and the distant thrum of the engines. The Ghost had survived another trial, but Marlowe knew they'd only bought themselves time, not safety. "We did good, team," she said, allowing herself a rare smile. "Take a breather, we've earned it." Reef sank back in his seat, exhaustion etched in every muscle. "If you say so, Cap, but I'm not holding my breath." Jax chuckled, wiping his hands on his already filthy overalls. "Wouldn't recommend it. Air might be the next thing to go." Vorth, uncharacteristically quiet, finally spoke up. "Captain, do you think we'll ever find a place where we don't have to fight to survive?" Marlowe considered the question, the weight of it pressing down on her. "I don't know, Vorth. But if such a place exists, we'll find it together, or die trying." "Probably the latter," Reef muttered, though there was no real conviction in it. "Hey," Jax interjected, "if we die, at least we'll have one hell of a story to tell in the afterlife." "If there is one," Marlowe said, her tone as dry as the void. "But for now, let's focus on staying alive. We've got a ship that needs fixing, a crew that needs feeding, and a universe full of surprises waiting for us." "Here's hoping they're good surprises," Vorth said, though he seemed to doubt it as much as the rest of them. "One surprise at a time," Marlowe said with a sigh, her gaze drifting back to the viewport and the stars beyond. "For now, let's just enjoy the fact that we've lived to fight another day." They settled into a comfortable silence, the kind that only came with shared hardships and the knowledge that, against all odds, they'd prevailed once more. The Ghost sailed on, a tiny defiant speck in the endless sea of stars, her crew ever watchful, ever ready for whatever came next. Because if there was one thing Captain Marlowe Vex and her ragtag family knew, it was that the universe was vast, unpredictable, and not nearly as clever as they were. And as long as they had each other, they could face anything. The Elysian Ghost creaked and groaned like an antique in a windstorm, but against all odds, she wasn't dead yet. Marlowe Vex couldn't say the same for her optimism, but since when did a captain need that? She squinted at the navigation screen, where Reef was hunched like a vulture over a carcass, pecking away at the controls with practiced desperation. "Navigation holding up?" Marlowe asked, more out of obligation than hope. "Like a wet paper bag in a rainstorm," Reef replied, his grin as brittle as the ship's hull. "Great, so we're in familiar territory," Marlowe mused. "What's the plan, team? I assume it involves not dying." "Too optimistic," Jax chimed in from the engine room, his voice distorted by static and sarcasm. "I'd say aim for not dying yet. Buy yourselves some time to figure out how the hell we outsmart these aliens." Vorth, always the voice of reason, or at least a reasonable facsimile, approached, his alien eyes flickering with concern. "The Cathedral is a repository of ancient knowledge. There's bound to be something we can use against them. If they are relying on old tech, it might be vulnerable," Marlowe agreed, tapping her chin with a finger. "Reef, see if you can tap into their systems. Let's see if their firewalls are as ancient as the rest of this place." "On it, Cap," Reef said, fingers dancing over the controls with a speed that suggested caffeine, paranoia, or both. "Infiltrating alien tech from a distance, piece of cake." "I like cake," Jax's voice cut in, slightly muffled by the sound of tools clattering. "As long as it's not a lie." "Focus, boys," Marlowe cautioned. "We've got a rogue AI on our side, remember. It's been living in the Cathedral's systems. Might be time to let it out of the box. Or the frying pan into the fire," Vorth murmured, skepticism practically dripping from his words. "Artificial intelligence is notoriously unpredictable. But predictably so," Reef quipped, not looking up from his work. "Which means it's perfect for us." "Reef, can you do it?" Marlowe asked, urgency edging her voice. "Done," Reef replied, a self-satisfied smirk on his lips. "The AI loose, and hopefully it hates the aliens more than it hates us." "That's reassuring," Vorth muttered, his brow furrowed. "Not much else is," Marlowe conceded, cracking her knuckles. "Everyone keep your guard up." V, give us a status update. Captain, if I may. V's voice chirped over the intercom, always an unwelcome ray of sunshine. Systems indicate the AI is engaging the cathedral's defenses. Oh, and the aliens seem to have noticed our little jailbreak. Time for Plan B, then, Jax responded, the sound of wrenching metal echoing from his end. What's our next move? Plan B, Marlowe repeated, her tone laced with amusement. We skip to Plan F for flee or fight, depending on how stupid we're feeling. I'm always up for a fight, Jax said, a dark chuckle in his voice. Usually other people's. Good. Keep your fists ready, Marlowe instructed, her eyes narrowing as she scanned the monitors. Reef, Vorth, any way we can use the cathedral's tech to give us an edge. Vorth's alien eyes glimmered with sudden interest. The containment field's power source runs on similar principles to the cathedral's life-sustaining systems. If we overload it, we might create a feedback loop. Which is a fancy way of saying it'll go boom, Reef asked, raising an eyebrow. Exactly, Vorth confirmed. Perfect, let's blow the roof off this joint, Marlowe said, her smile that of a woman with nothing left to lose. V, prepare to transfer all available power to that plan. Already done, Captain, V chirped, the intercom's overzealous cheerfulness a stark contrast to the gravity of the situation. All right, people, Marlowe announced, her voice rising above the din of the ship. This is it. If this works, we'll give those aliens a fireworks show they'll never forget. And if it doesn't, well, it's been a pleasure. No pressure, Reef murmured, hands flying over the console. Jax snorted from the engine room. Pressure's how diamonds are made, right? Let's shine. The Elysian Ghost's engines roared to life, a mechanical symphony of defiance. The ship surged forward, every bolt and weld straining against the onslaught of cosmic forces. The cathedral loomed ahead, its ancient spires and Gothic arches casting long shadows across the void. Engage the feedback loop on my mark, Marlowe ordered, fingers tightening on the armrests of her chair. Ready, Reef confirmed, tension etched in his features. Now, Marlowe shouted. A tremor ran through the Ghost as the cathedral's systems shuddered under the strain. Alarms blared, lights flickered, and the containment field crackled with barely contained energy. Looks like it's working, Jax's voice crackled over the intercom, filled with grim satisfaction. Those aliens are scrambling. Let's hope they scramble faster than eggs in a pan, Reef quipped, though his expression remained tense as he monitored their status. Status report, Marlowe barked, eyes locked on the viewport. The AI holding up its end, Reef replied. It's using the cathedral's defenses to keep the aliens busy. Good, Marlowe said, her grip on the armrests relaxing slightly. Jax, hold the engine steady. We're not out of this yet. Engines are steady as a rock, Jax assured, though the sound of clanging metal suggested otherwise. Then it's time to make our exit, Marlowe declared, her voice a blend of determination and defiance. Reef, plot us a course through the chaos. Reef nodded, fingers flying over the controls with well-practiced ease. Course plotted. Hang on tight, folks. The Ghost shuddered as she accelerated, weaving through the cathedral's defensive fire like a dancer through a deadly waltz. Marlowe's heart pounded in her chest, every muscle tensed as they hurtled towards freedom. Captain, Vorth said, his voice tinged with awe and apprehension. The containment field is destabilizing. Exactly what we want, Marlowe replied, her gaze fixed on the swirling maelstrom ahead. Reef, keep us steady. Steady as she goes, Reef confirmed, his focus unwavering as he guided the ship through the tumultuous void. The Ghost emerged from the chaos, battered but unbroken, leaving the cathedral and its alien occupants to deal with the mess they'd left behind. The containment field flickered and died, its energy spent in vain. We did it, Marlowe breathed, disbelief mingling with triumph in her voice. Don't sound too surprised, Cap, Jax's voice crackled over the intercom, amusement in his tone. We've always been too stubborn to die. That's true, Marlowe agreed, her lips curving into a weary smile. Reef, Vorth, excellent work. Let's put some distance between us and the cathedral before the aliens regroup. On it, Reef replied, his fingers still dancing over the controls as he adjusted their course. Vorth nodded, relief evident in his alien features. We may have bought ourselves time, Captain, but the struggle is far from over. True, Marlowe conceded, her gaze fixed on the stars beyond the viewport. But for now, let's enjoy this small victory. Small victories are still victories, Jax said, satisfaction in his voice. And we'll take what we can get. The Ghost sailed on, a battered but resilient vessel in the vast expanse of space. The crew settled into a wary silence, each lost in thoughts of their narrow escape and the challenges yet to come. Captain, Vorth said, breaking the silence, do you think we'll ever find a place where we can rest? Marlowe considered the question, her expression contemplative. I don't know, Vorth. But if such a place exists, we won't stop searching until we find it. Or until the universe finds us, Reef added dryly. Optimist, Marlowe teased, her smile genuine despite the weariness in her eyes. I try, Reef replied, his own smile faint but present. And maybe that's enough, Jax said, his voice thoughtful. To keep trying even when the odds are stacked against us. Especially then, Marlowe agreed, her gaze once again drawn to the stars. Because as long as we're together, there's always hope. Even if it's just a sliver, Vorth remarked, his tone both skeptical and hopeful. Slivers can cut, Marlowe said, a hint of mischief in her voice. And sometimes that's all it takes. The crew settled into a comfortable silence, the kind forged in the crucible of shared danger and hard-won victory. The Elysian Ghost sailed on, a defiant speck in the endless sea of stars, her crew ever vigilant, ever ready for whatever challenges lay ahead. Because if there was one thing Captain Marlowe Vex and her ragtag band of survivors knew, it was that the universe might be vast and unpredictable, but it wasn't half as clever as they were. And as long as they had each other, they could face anything. The Elysian Ghost drifted through the void like a drunk in search of last call, its hull patched with more duct tape than dignity. Inside, Captain Marlowe Vex sat in her worn captain's chair, a throne for a ruler of ruins. The crew was strewn about the ship, each licking their respective wounds from their recent dance with death. So, we're not dead, again. Reef broke the silence, his fingers drumming a rhythm on the console. That's what, the 5th time this week. We're gonna start getting a reputation. Jax snorted, wiping grease from his hands with a rag that might have once been a shirt. Yeah, as the idiots who keep tempting fate and winning by sheer dumb luck. Luck's got nothing to do with it, Marlowe murmured, eyes fixed on the swirling stars beyond the viewport. It's all about skill, timing, and a profound disregard for our own safety. That's comforting, Vorth interjected, his alien eyes flickering like faulty neon. A crew led by someone with a death wish. It's inspiring, really. Hey, it's not a death wish, Marlowe corrected, a wry smile tugging at her lips. It's more of a death dare. Besides, living on the edge is the only place where the views are decent. Reef rolled his eyes, the sarcasm practically dripping from his voice. And what a view it is. A whole lot of nothing, sprinkled with more nothing. Better than the view from inside that cathedral, Jax countered, tossing the rag aside. I prefer my space without homicidal AI and aliens with vendettas. Speaking of which, Marlowe said, turning her chair to face the others, let's talk about what just happened. We threw a pretty big wrench into their plans back there. Any guesses on what that means for us? Aside from the usual run for our lives, Reef asked, leaning back and stretching. It means we've got a big fat target on our backs. Again, sounds like a Tuesday, Jax quipped, the engine rooms clanking his usual orchestra. Vorth's eyes flickered thoughtfully. The cathedral's systems were ancient, yes, but their knowledge wasn't. If the aliens were using it to preserve something important, they might come looking for us. Great, Marlowe said, her voice laced with irony, as if we didn't have enough problems. Now we're the galaxy's most wanted. Hey, at least we're wanted, Reef said, his grin cheeky. Yeah, adds a certain charm to our otherwise bleak existence, Jax agreed, cracking his knuckles. So, what's the plan, fearless leader? Marlowe leaned back, tapping her fingers against the armrest. We need to keep moving, find somewhere they can't follow. Something tells me they're not big on giving up. Somewhere they can't follow, Reef echoed. You mean like, nowhere. More like somewhere they wouldn't think to look, Marlowe corrected, her gaze speculative. Somewhere forgotten like us. There's a whole lot of forgotten out there, Jax pointed out, gesturing vaguely to the infinite beyond. Then we'll fit right in, Marlowe replied, standing up and stretching. V, what's our status? The intercom crackled to life. We're holding together, Captain, though barely. I must say your penchant for chaos keeps me quite busy. Glad to be of service, Marlowe said dryly. Reef, plot us a course. Somewhere off the radar, but not too off. We don't want to end up lost in the void. Reef nodded, his fingers flying across the console. Got just the place in mind. It's not exactly paradise, but then neither are we. Sounds perfect, Marlowe said, her smile a crooked line of defiance. Let's see if we can't disappear for a bit. As the ghost hummed with renewed purpose, the crew settled into their routines, each acutely aware of the precariousness of their existence. In the quiet moments, Marlowe couldn't help but reflect on the cost of their escape, the literal and metaphorical debris they'd left behind. Hey, Cap, Jax called from the engine room, startling her from her thoughts. You ever think about why we keep doing this? Marlowe paused, considering his question. You mean risking life and limb for a chance at survival? Or the part where we stick it to the universe every chance we get? Both, Jax replied, his tone serious for once. It's what we're good at, Marlowe said, her voice low. And as long as there's one more fight, one more challenge, we keep proving we're still here, still human. Despite the universe's best efforts to the contrary, Reef added, not looking up from his work. Exactly, Marlowe agreed, feeling the weight of it all, their actions, their choices, their survival, pressing down like the cold expanse outside. Vorth approached, his alien gait smooth and silent. Do you believe humanity has a future in this galaxy, Captain? Marlowe met his gaze, the question heavier than any starship. I think as long as there's one of us left standing, there's a chance. Even if it's just a sliver. Slivers can fracture into something bigger, Vorth mused, his voice thoughtful. Perhaps that's enough. A sliver of hope, a dash of madness, Reef said, his expression one of mock cynicism. It's the perfect recipe for survival, or at least a good story. Yeah, and we're the stars, Jax said with a grin. Even if the universe would rather we were just footnotes. Marlowe chuckled, the sound a rare moment of levity. So we'll just have to keep rewriting our own pages. The ghost cruised through the dark, a fragile beacon of life and defiance in a galaxy that had long since stopped caring. But within its battered hull, a crew united by shared ordeals and a refusal to simply fade away, plotted their uncertain course with determination. Captain, Vorth said, breaking the contemplative silence, I've been thinking about the AI we encountered. It's possible it holds more information than we realized. You mean aside from the whole try to kill us bit? Reef asked, arching an eyebrow. Yes, Vorth continued, undeterred. It was defending something, and it might have data on the aliens' plans, their strategy, knowledge we could use. Marlowe nodded, considering the implications. And let me guess, you want to go back and chat with it. Not exactly, Vorth admitted, his expression serious. But we should be prepared. If it survived, it may try to contact us again. Great, Jax said, his tone sarcastic, because we clearly haven't met enough homicidal AI. Hey, if it wants to be pen pals, who are we to say no? Reef chimed in, grinning. Let's cross that bridge if we come to it, Marlowe said, a touch of weariness in her voice. For now, let's focus on not getting blown up. The ghost sailed on, a ship of fools and survivors, each clinging to their roles and responsibilities like life rafts in a storm. Marlowe knew they couldn't run forever, but for now it was enough, a reprieve from the chaos and a chance to breathe. Reef, she said, her tone softening, you got that course plotted? Yup, he replied, flashing a thumbs up. Ready whenever you are, Captain, Marlowe nodded, settling back into her chair. Then let's set sail for the unknown, and hope it's kinder than the known. Kindness is overrated, Jax muttered, though there was a hint of affection in his voice. Maybe, Marlowe replied, her gaze fixed on the stars. But it beats the hell out of getting vaporized. The Ghost accelerated, engines humming with a melody only its crew could understand, a song of persistence, irreverence, and the unyielding spirit of humanity. "Captain," V's chirpy voice rang through the intercom, "all systems are nominal. For now." "Thanks, V," Marlowe said, a small smile playing on her lips. "Keep reminding us that nothing lasts forever." "Of course, Captain," V replied with unsettling enthusiasm. "It's part of my charm." "Charming indeed," Jax remarked, rolling his eyes. As they journeyed onward, Marlowe couldn't shake the feeling that they'd merely escaped one storm to sail into another. But that was life on the edge, where the line between survival and oblivion was razor thin. "Hey, Marlowe," Reef said, his voice slicing through her thoughts. "You ever think about what comes after all this, like if we ever stop running?" Marlowe considered his question, the weight of it settling like dust on her shoulders. "Maybe we'll find a place to call home, or maybe we'll just keep drifting like cosmic nomads." "Drifters," Jax echoed, nodding. "I can live with that." "Beats being dead, or being somebody else's experiment," Vorth added, a rare hint of amusement in his tone. "Yeah, I'm not a fan of being poked and prodded," Reef said, grimacing. "I like my bits where they are, thank you very much," Marlowe chuckled softly. "We're survivors, plain and simple. As long as we're together, we'll figure it out." "Together," Jax repeated, his voice steady. "That's the key, isn't it?" "Sticking together, through thick and thin," Vorth agreed, his eyes flickering with a warmth that belied his usual stoicism. "Thick, thin, and everything in between," Marlowe said, feeling the truth of it resonate deep within her. "It's what makes us human." The Ghost continued its journey through the vast and uncaring galaxy, its course set for destinations unknown. But within its walls, a family of misfits and outcasts, each bound by loyalty and a shared will to defy the odds, found solace in their chosen path. "Captain," V chirped, a note of finality in her voice, "we're on course and all systems are stable, for now." "Thanks, V," Marlowe replied, a sigh escaping her lips. "Let's keep it that way for as long as we can." As the stars stretched before them, a tapestry of infinite possibilities, Marlowe knew they were far from safe. But in the company of her crew, in their defiant laughter and shared survival, she found hope, a sliver perhaps, but enough to light their way forward. And so the Elysian Ghost sailed on, a ship born of dreams and desperation, its crew a testament to the resilience of the human spirit. No matter what lay ahead, they would face it together, with sarcasm and wit as their weapons and hope as their guiding star.